Hi everyone, welcome back. In the past few videos I've mentioned PHPStan several times, and today's finally the day we're going to set it up. I want to show you how to install it, what to configure, the different rule levels, and then finally enforce quality in a GitHub workflow. And the first thing we need to do is install PHPStan. So we do a composer require PHPStan/PHPStan, and we want to add it as a development requirement. And our composer and JSON and log have been updated. And then we can actually already run PHPStan. We can run it from vendor bin PHPStan. And we say analyze. We can do it with a Z or an S. And let's say we want to analyze the source folder. We actually got some errors here, but we're not going to bother with those for now because we didn't configure anything. So we want to make sure that we have a configuration file. Now PHPStan expects a configuration file in a neon format. And we can manually supply a path as a command line argument. But if we don't do that, PHPStan will check for a phpstan.neon and then a neon.dist and a dist.neon. And the same way we did with PHP unit, we can make sure that we include a dist file in our repository. And then when a developer wants some other settings, they can use a phpstan.neon, which is git ignored. But let's do that. So first we added our git ignore and add phpstan.neon here. And then we create a new file, phpstan.neon.dist. And the first thing we run into is that this file is recognized as plain text, so we don't have any autocomplete here. So let's fix that first. We go to settings. We should have a plugin for neon support. I already have it here. But that means that my file types are not correctly set up. So if we scroll here to neon, we can add star.neon.dist. Apply and OK. And now we do have autocomplete here. And there's multiple things we can configure in here. And let's start with the level. And this goes from 0 to 9. Let's start with 0 and come back to this later. And then let's configure the paths that PHPStan should be checking. And there's actually several paths. We have PHP code in its public, source, and test. So let's configure those three folders. And add a new line at the end. And if we now run PHPStan again, we don't need to configure the path because it's going to take that from this file. And we made a typo in the test folder. And now it still found 2 errors. And you saw me type vendor bin phpstan analyze for the second time. I don't want to do that a lot more in this video. So let's add it here as a script. So usually I call this stan. And it should point to vendor bin phpstan analyze. And if we now run composer stan, it's a bit less typing. And we're only at level 0, but we already got 2 errors. So let's try to fix these. And these are actually quite easy to fix because these are just from a previous video where we added a method but didn't implement the method itself. So let's remove this. And I think the same holds for this. Yeah, because we don't do anything with this. Just remove it. If I now run it again, it's not complaining anymore. And before we move on, let's look at the rule levels because they're here for an interesting reason. Because not all code bases start from scratch. So we have to have a way to enable PHPStan in an existing code base. And this is the way. So if we were to go to level 8 or 9, there would be a lot of errors from the start. So what we want is a way to gradually increase the quality of the code. And we can do that by starting at level 0, fixing all the issues on that level, and then slowly move up. And I've done this quite a few times at different companies, and there's usually a few hundred, a few thousand between levels, sometimes tens of thousands. So you have to get creative with some refactoring tools, maybe some regular expressions to do a bunch of editing at the same time and make this a bit easier. And as we're blessed with quite a new code base, we've only done some videos. We can start off at level 9, and we can even go further. We can enable PHPStan strict rules to get some more opinionated rules. And we can also enable bleeding edge, which currently is a bit faster, but it also means that all the smaller rules that get released over the weeks during a release cycle, we actually can fix the things that the inspections now find, and we don't have to do one big upgrade with a next major release. And let's do all at the same time. So we switch to level 9. We add an includes for the bleeding edge, which lives in var phpstan.var /conf/bleeding edge.neon. And let's do a composer wire of PHPStan strict rules as a development dependency. And we need to also include that, so that lives in vendor PHPStan rules.neon. If we do another composer stan, we get 7 errors. So let's fix these quickly. And you've seen me do it before, but the easiest way to fix a quality issue is to actually remove the file. And we don't actually use this file. So let's delete the template folder. That's one error done. And let's continue with the environment service provider. And it's complaining here on line 22 that this should be a class string of environment, but we just give it a string. And I don't want to go into generics in this video, so let's just mark this as an environment class. It's the same thing right now. And here it's complaining that we do an explode on a string or false, and we can only handle strings. So this is what I mentioned in the last video. If the env contents, the file get contents is returning false, we couldn't find the file, so we should also handle this scenario. We do an is false, and we throw a new exception no dot env file found, and that should solve the 2 issues in this file. Now I want to move on quickly, but I also want to show a realistic picture of how to solve these. And this is another easy one, and all the other ones are in the connection service provider. And we have the same one with generics here again. So this should be a connection class string. And then we have 2 errors left. And these are a bit more complicated. And the top error I don't really want to deal with now because it's too complex for this video. I want to make this video not too long. So we'll just ignore this for now. We can do that with phpstan-ignore. We need an error identifier after this. So we can get that with -v. And in this case, it's argument.type, so we can add it here. And the last error here is related to the offset port that doesn't accept string or null. It expects an integer. And actually in the return type here, we specify that this is string or null. So let's rename this to getString and add a new method called getInt. Update the return type here, and then use this new getInt method here. Now we get a bunch of new errors related to nullable types, because the default for getString is a null, but we can't pass null to the user key in getConnection. So we need to fall back to an empty string here. And we need to do this for almost all keys. It's going to be an empty string. And the port number needs to be an integer, so we're going to add 3306, which is the default MySQL port. And here we need PDO MySQL. And now it's complaining that the driver should be one of these strings, not just any string, but one of these. And with the magic of some editing, we now have a driver enum. So we could do a try from on environment getString or an empty string and use the value. And if it doesn't return anything from the try from, we use the default PDO MySQL. Let's also use the enum itself. So we do PDO MySQL and then use the value from that. And we finally have a PHPStan level 9 working repository. I've done this before in my previous videos, but we want to make sure that whenever we push some code, we immediately check that all the standards that we enforce on ourselves are passing. And we also want to do that for PHPStan. So let's edit our quality workflow, and let's copy the unit job. And let's rename this PHPStan. And we also need the composer install, and then we need to run PHPStan. And instead of composer units, we can run composer stan. And let's commit and push our changes. Now we can see that our PHPStan job is queued, and if we go to the details, it already finished. And that worked. I want to leave it at that for this video. There's a lot more we can do with PHPStan, and I'll definitely dive into that in a future video, but for now this video is getting quite long already. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.